So soldiers given orders, move 3 kilometers north and then go east until you get to the objective. Simple instructions, but he's going to need a symbol for that unknown distance that he's going to have to travel east before he gets to the objective. So that symbol that he would use to represent a number is called a variable, and today we will learn how to build on those kind of instructions in math. So welcome to Phorge Mathematics. I'm Ryan, and the topic for today is Introduction to Variables and Writing Expressions. This is a language of algebra, and everything here depends on it. So no background needed. We're going to go ahead and build this up from the ground. So let's get into it. Okay, so by the end of this video, you will be able to identify what a variable is and why we use it. You'll be able to translate real-world phrase into an algebraic expression. You'll be able to identify terms, coefficients, and constraints. And then you'll combine like terms to simplify an expression. So part one, what is a variable? A variable is a letter used to represent an unknown or changing value. So most common, you're going to see like x, y, or n. Those are the most common ones that are used. So let's say that you're in the weight room and you don't know how much you can bench. So what you're going to say is, I'm going to find out what my max bench is, and until I figure out what that is, I'm going to use the letter W until I figure out what that number is when you do your max. So let's say you're in a game and you're trying to figure out exactly what your score is. You don't know your score is yet until you find out after they calculate your score. And so they're going to use S as a placeholder until they're able to identify exactly how many points you scored in that game. And so you could also use it for every time it changes, such as like every round of the game, you're going to increase your score or decrease your score. So what is an algebraic expression? An expression is just a combination of variables, numbers, and operations, and so no equal sign. So for example, you could write 3x, 2n plus 5, 7 minus y, 4x plus 2y minus 1. So this one here at the end has two variables in it. All right, so parts of an expression. So let's label each part of the expression. So the terms is each piece separated by a plus or minus sign. So in this example, 4x is a term, 2y is a term, and negative 1 is a term, or minus 1 is a term. So the coefficients, so in this case, you're going to have 4 in the 4x, 2 in the 2y, and negative, and since negative 1 doesn't have a variable in it, you're just going to use negative 1, and that's going to be its own standalone term. So think of a football roster. So you have 4 roster slots, so you need how many jerseys for that? So let's say each player has 2 jerseys, a home jersey and a away jersey. So 2 times 4, you have 4 slots, so that's going to be a total of 8. So you have 2 jerseys times x, and x is going to be how many players you have, and that's going to tell you how many jerseys you're going to need. Okay, so let's go into translating some words. So some common ways that you're going to see is sum slash more than. This, it means that you're going to be adding something. Anytime you see difference, less than, that implies subtraction. So anytime you're going to see anything like product, times, by, multiplied by, something like that, that implies multiplication. And so you can do multiplication as a x like this. You also see it as just a dot. Next, quotient. So quotient divided by, per, those all types of terms imply that it's going to be division. So maybe you'll see something like twice a number, so 2n. 5 more than a number, so we'll use x as our number, and then what's 5 more than that number? Plus 5. Another example, a number decreased by 7. So what does that mean? Let's say we have the letter y minus 7. So, and then another example could be the product of 3 and a number. So product, what does that mean? That's right. We're going to be looking at multiplication. So let's use one of my favorite letters, R. R, 3 times R, or it's just 3R. Okay. Let's move into some worked examples. Okay. So now we have 8 more than a number. What is the key word in this phrase? That's right. More. So we just use n as our number plus 8. More than, what's 8 more than a number? N plus 8. Okay, moving on to the next one. Identify the parts of 5x minus 3. So something I always like to do is I will literally underline, like I just did parts, to kind of key my brain into what is important when I'm looking at this word problem. So don't be afraid to mark up the word problem or write little notes off the side to help your brain keep in contact or key in on what's important. Okay, so let's start off with the terms. What is the terms of 5x minus 3? That's right, 5x and minus 3. Okay, let's look at coefficients. So remember, coefficients are only the numbers that go in front of variables. So we only have one variable, and it's 5x. So the coefficient will be 5. All right, let's look at variables. So variables are anything that we don't know. And so essentially, look for the letters. We have one letter here. That's right, so x. All right, and then finally, constant. So constants are numbers that we do know. So we do know that there's a minus 3, negative 3. Okay. Okay, let's move on to example 3. So a soldier carries 4 times his body weight in gear minus 10 pounds of water. So let's underline some of the key terms that we're seeing here. We see 4 times. So that's going to indicate to us that it's probably going to be multiplication. Minus 10 pounds of water. So that's probably going to be subtraction. So let's go ahead and write out this expression. So, and then we also don't know the body weight. That's not given. So the term, or so the variable, in this case, let's use W for weight. And we know that it's going to be 4 times the body weight. So 4W, and then we're going to have to, whatever that number is, we need minus 10. So minus 10. And there you go. That's what you have for the expression. Let's look at this trap problem. The sum of a number and 3 multiplied by 2. So this, whenever you see that number where it says then, or the sum of a number and multiplied, so what I like to think of is this saying then multiplied by 2. So what that means is there's 2 separate things going on, which is an indication that we're going to be using parentheses. So let's circle or underline a keyword. So we have sum of a number. That number is unknown, and then multiplied by 2. The sum of a number and 3. So we have n plus 3. Then multiplied by 2, which is the key giveaway, was that comma. So don't get tripped up here when it says that comma, because you don't want to just then multiply 3 by 2. So be careful for that. All right. Let's go over some common mistakes. 3 less than n is n minus 3, not 3 minus n. So be careful of the order. So sometimes you may have to pay attention. Just because it says less than doesn't mean it automatically is going to flow left to right. Forget in parentheses when the sum/difference is multiplied as a group. So that was kind of that trap problem we just read over. So you got to be careful that if you're multiplying it as a group, you need to put the addition or whatever's going on inside the parentheses, and then multiply that by whatever that multiplier is. 5x and 5 are not the same. One has a variable and one is different. So perfect example. So 5x does not necessarily equal 5. So in what case would 5x equal 5? That's right. When you use the identity property, 5 times 1 is equal to 5. So other than x is equal to 1, 5 is not going to equal to 5. Combining unlike terms. So as you can see here, 3x plus 5y has to remain like that. If you combine them and say it's 8 times xy, you could that's going to be the wrong answer, because x and y are different things. You can't combine them like that. Assuming the variable must be x, label it clearly for each problem. So if you have multiple variables, not every variable can be x, because if you label every variable x, this could get real confusing, and you could be combining terms that aren't necessarily the same. So make sure you look out for that. Okay. So go ahead and pause this video and take a minute to do these additional practice problems, and then I'll show you the answers. Okay, so go ahead and take a look at the answers here and put in the comments how many you're able to get right. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. So you have a variable, which is a letter for an unknown or changing variable. What's an unknown? So let's say you have Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas chasing hunting orcs. They don't know how far they're going to go. That's an unknown. It's a variable distance, because as the orcs are running away and they're chasing them, they don't know how far they're going to go, and the distance between them is constantly changing. What's an expression? So it's a variable plus numbers plus operation, and there's no equal sign. And then know the different parts that go into making an expression. So you have a term. So that's going to be like 3x. So what is the coefficient of that? 3. What is the variable? X, and then the constant. So like 3x plus 1, that constant is going to be plus 1. So translating it and taking word problems and translating them to an expression, that is a skill, and you have to practice. There's key phrases until they just become automatic. So if this helped you a lot, go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button, and drop a comment if you got that trap problem right or not. I want to see it. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I read every single one. Or you can email me at forgemath@gmail.com. And so next time, keep on evaluating expressions, and then we're going to keep on building on this in the next one. Have a good one.